The moment you start justifying, clarifying, or proving your innocence, the balance has already shifted. Not because you're wrong, but because you've accepted a role you never agreed to play. The role of the defendant. Think about it. An accusation is thrown your way, not even a direct attack, just a subtle implication. You're being irresponsible. That's not very professional. Why would you do it like that? Your body reacts before your mind does. Chest tightens. Pulse quickens. A familiar urgency rises. I need to fix this. So you speak. And the moment you do, something invisible happens. You grant them authority. Why explaining feels so necessary? You weren't born with this reflex. It was trained into you. As a child, accusation meant consequences. The only defense was explanation. I didn't mean to. It wasn't my fault. I was just trying to help. You learned that safety came from being understood. But adulthood doesn't work the same way. Most accusations now aren't about truth. They're about control. They're tests. And every time you rush to explain, you fail them. The hidden power structure of conversation. Every conversation operates on two levels. The surface level is what people think is happening, words being exchanged, ideas debated, facts discussed. But underneath that is the real interaction, the power exchange. Who is evaluating? Who is reacting? Who is calm? Who is seeking permission? This structure forms instantly, often before a full sentence is even finished. The moment someone challenges you, your judgment, your motives, your competence, a hierarchy is proposed. Not openly, but psychologically. And here is the rule that governs it. The one who explains places themselves below the one who judges. When you begin to justify, clarify, or defend, you are not simply adding context. You are accepting the other person's authority to assess you. You are agreeing that they get to decide whether your explanation is sufficient. That is the submission. Most people miss this because it feels polite, reasonable, even mature. But at the unconscious level, it establishes dominance. The question is rarely innocent. Why did you do that? What were you thinking? Don't you think that was irresponsible? These are not requests for information. They are assumptions of fault disguised as curiosity. If you answer them directly, you validate the assumption. You confirm that you owe an explanation. Once that happens, the frame is locked. They are the evaluator. You are the evaluated. And from that position, no amount of logic will restore your status, because logic only functions inside the frame that already places you below. Power is not about winning the argument. It is about refusing the role assigned to you. This is why silence is so disruptive. Silence does not argue against the frame. It ignores it. It communicates, without words. I do not recognize your authority to question me. This creates discomfort because the other person expected compliance. They expected defense. They expected engagement. When it doesn't come, the structure destabilizes. Often, they begin to explain themselves. They soften their tone. They justify their question. They retreat. That is the moment the hierarchy reverses. Not because you attacked, but because you didn't submit. This is also why calm presence outweighs cleverness. Clever explanations keep you trapped in the lower position, trying to prove worth. Calm non-reaction signals internal authority. It tells the nervous system of the other person that you are not operating from need, fear, or validation seeking. And in human interaction, the person who does not need approval holds the power. What happens when you don't defend? Imagine this instead. They say, that was a selfish move. You don't rush. You don't react. You don't explain. You pause. Not dramatically. Not angrily. Just long enough for the silence to become uncomfortable. That silence does something powerful. It removes friction. Without resistance, their attack has nowhere to land. Most people cannot tolerate that moment. They'll fill it themselves, backpedaling, justifying, softening their stance. Without you saying a word, the pressure reverses. That's the flip. Silence isn't passive. Its dominant. Silence isn't weakness. It's ambiguity. And ambiguity is terrifying to people who want control. When you defend yourself, you expose your values, your fears, your insecurities. When you stay silent, you reveal nothing. You become unreadable. And unreadable people cannot be manipulated. When you must speak, change the direction. Silence is powerful, but silence is not always possible. There are moments where words are required. Meetings, relationships, public settings, situations where total non-response would create unnecessary damage. In those moments, the mistake most people make is pushing back. They try to counter the accusation. They argue against the force coming at them. They meet pressure with pressure. That keeps them trapped. When you push back, you are still accepting the direction of the attack. You are still moving along the path the other person chose. Real power comes from changing the direction entirely. This is not resistance. This is redirection. When someone accuses you, their words carry momentum. The accusation is moving forward, expecting collision. Defensive speech provides that collision. You say, "No, that's not true. Let me explain. That's not what I meant." You have just absorbed the impact and now you are reacting. Changing the direction means refusing to absorb the force at all. Instead of pushing against the accusation, you step sideways. You do not argue the content. You alter the frame. For example, someone says, "That was unprofessional." A defensive response treats the statement as valid. "I had reasons. I was under pressure. I did my best." You are now arguing inside their judgment. A directional shift sounds different. Interesting that you saw it that way. Notice what happened. You didn't agree. You didn't disagree. You didn't explain. You reframed the interaction from your behavior to their perception. Now the conversation is no longer about whether you were unprofessional. It's about why they interpreted it that way. That subtle shift pulls the authority away from them. Another example, you're being selfish. Defense, "No, I'm not. I do things for everyone." Still trapped. Direction change, that's your interpretation. Calm, neutral, no emotion. You acknowledge the sound of their words without accepting ownership of the meaning. You're saying, "This belief exists. But it exists in you, not in me." That separation is everything. Changing direction also works through controlled agreement, but only when done without shame. If someone accuses you of something partially true, you do not defend the identity. You own the behavior, briefly, and move on. You drop the ball. Defense, "I had a lot going on." Direction change, yes, it slipped, it's handled now. No explanation, no justification, no self-attack. You absorb the fact, not the judgment. This signals extreme confidence. Only insecure people need to narrate their intentions. Secure people correct reality and proceed. The key principle here is this: never add energy to an accusation. Defensive explanations add energy. Emotional reactions add energy. Overtalking adds energy. Changing direction removes it. You respond just enough to stay present, but not enough to give the accusation oxygen. This requires discipline, because your ego will scream. It wants to prove. It wants to correct. It wants to be seen as good, competent, or right. You must deny it that relief. When you speak, your words should do one of three things only: reframe, neutralize, redirect. If they don't do one of those, don't speak. Changing direction is not about winning the interaction. It's about exiting the role of the defendant without drama. You are no longer fighting accusations. You are no longer chasing understanding. You are simply refusing to carry what does not belong to you. And that refusal, calm, minimal, unreactive, is where the power lies. Agreement as a weapon. Most people hear the word agreement and think submission. They imagine nodding, apologizing, shrinking. That's not what this is. This is agreement stripped of shame. And that distinction changes everything. When someone attacks you, they expect resistance. They expect denial. They expect friction. Their emotional energy is already moving forward, prepared to collide with your defense. When you agree calmly, without justification, you remove the collision point. The attack passes straight through you. Consider what an attacker actually wants. They don't want accuracy. They don't want resolution. They want reaction. They want to see you tense up, explain, protest, or spiral, because reaction confirms power. Defending validates the attack. Arguing dignifies it. Explaining feeds it. Agreement starves it. But this only works if the agreement is clean. No sarcasm that sounds bitter. No apology that smells like fear. No tone that asks for forgiveness. Just ownership. Someone says, "You messed this up." Defensive agreement sounds like, "Yeah, but I had a lot going on." That's not agreement. That's disguised defense. Weaponized agreement sounds like, "You're right," and then silence. Nothing else. That silence does something violent to their expectations. They prepared for a fight. You gave them emptiness. Here's why this is so destabilizing. When you agree without shame, you deny them three things at once: moral superiority, emotional leverage, narrative control. They can't escalate because you didn't resist. They can't dominate because you didn't submit. They can't continue because there's nothing to push against. It's like swinging at air. Now let's get precise. Agreement does not mean accepting the identity they're trying to pin on you. It means separating behavior from character. You're careless. Defense. I'm not careless. Trap. Weaponized agreement. That was careless. Notice what you didn't say. You didn't say "I am careless." You acknowledged the event, not the label. This is critical. Insecure people protect their identity at all costs. Secure people protect reality. Reality can be corrected. Identity doesn't need defending. This is why agreement makes manipulators panic. They rely on shame. They want you to internalize the label. They want you to fight it emotionally. When you calmly accept the fact and discard the insult, you expose the manipulation. They were aiming for control, not truth. There's another layer here that most people miss. Agreement communicates self-trust. When you agree without over-explaining, you're signaling, "I already know where I stand. I don't need to convince you. I don't require your verdict." That energy is unmistakable. It's why confident people can admit mistakes effortlessly, and insecure people can't admit anything at all. Insecurity clings. Confidence releases. Sometimes the most aggressive form of agreement is brevity. You handled that badly. Yes, nothing else. No defense. No tone change. No follow-up. That single word ends the exchange because it leaves no opening. The attacker either escalates, revealing themselves, or retreats. Either way, you win by clarity. The final rule is this: agreement only works when you are internally aligned. If you agree while secretly begging for approval, people will feel the crack. But when your agreement comes from self-knowledge, from having already confronted your flaws, it becomes untouchable. You're not conceding power. You're demonstrating that you don't need to protect an image. And in human psychology, the person who doesn't protect an image controls the room. Why insults hurt, and why that's useful information. Insults don't hurt at random. If someone says something absurd about you, and it doesn't touch anything real, your body doesn't react. There's no spike of heat, no urge to defend. You might even laugh. But when a comment lands and stays with you, when it replays in your head hours later, it's because it hit something unfinished. That reaction is information, not about the other person, about you. An insult only has power if it connects to a doubt you already carry, a fear you haven't resolved, a story you secretly believe might be true. That doesn't mean the insult is accurate. It means it found a weak seam. This is why different people are hurt by different things. What devastates one person slides off another. The difference isn't toughness, it's familiarity. When you haven't looked directly at a flaw, others can use it against you. When you've already acknowledged it, the weapon disappears. Insults hurt because they threaten an image you're trying to protect. And that's the useful part. Every insult reveals where you're still seeking validation, where you're still hoping to be seen a certain way, where you're still outsourcing your self-definition. Once you see that, the pain stops being an attack. It becomes a diagnostic, and diagnostics are meant to be used, not feared. The shift that makes you untouchable at some point, you stop trying to manage how you're perceived. You stop explaining your intentions. Stop correcting misunderstandings. Stop auditioning for approval. You let people think what they want, and something interesting happens. Respect replaces tension. Calm replaces urgency. Presence replaces performance. You don't dominate by force. You dominate by not needing to. For 1 week, don't defend. No explanations for being late. No justifications for your choices. No correcting assumptions. State facts. Own mistakes. Let silence do the rest. You'll feel discomfort at first. That's withdrawal from validation. Power isn't loud. It doesn't rush. It doesn't argue. It waits. And if this way of moving through the world feels familiar, like something you've always known but never trusted, then you're already ahead. Stay quiet. Stay centered. Stay sovereign.